I should have told you out at the tree. The sap, when it comes out of the maple tree, has 3% sugar in it. That's all, 3%. And the maple tree is the only tree that has any sugar in it. You could tap an oak tree and get sap, but there wouldn't be any sugar in it. The maple is the only one. Now there are some birch trees that they use for sap and things like that, but predominantly the maple is the only one. And it takes 40 gallons of sap to boil down to 1 gallon of syrup. And you're only going to get about 25 gallons of sap out of a tree per year. So you couldn't make a gallon of syrup for one tree. You'd have to have 2 trees. Now, we put the sap into the tank back there, and then when we're ready to bring it in, it's froze right now. I didn't get any this morning. You just open that handle, and it'll run down the pipe into this little float box. Through this pipe, there's a pipe on the other side, and it'll fill the evaporator up with sap. It holds about 20 gallons. In the beginning, it's all cold, so I have to wait till it gets sap in before I can light the fire, otherwise you'd warp the evaporator. After I light the fire, I have to wait about an hour before I start to see any steam coming up. Now once I see that steam, then I gotta start watching it a little closer, because we're boiling the water away from the sap. I'll show you. We didn't get to see any coming out of the tree. This is some I got this morning that's still got ice in it. This is what it looks like when it comes out of the maple tree. It's only 3% sugar, 97% water. So we're boiling that water away and saving the liquid. Now, it starts to get thicker and sweeter down here, but it also starts to change color. You can see it start looking more like maple syrup. Now, the way the evaporator works, as the water boils away, you're concentrating the syrup down in this end of the evaporator. And to make syrup, you've got to get the temperature up to 219 degrees. Once you reach that temperature, it'll turn into syrup automatically. In the evaporator, I have a hard time reaching 219. There's a couple reasons. As the level goes down, this little float will drop down, and it'll keep letting more sap in to keep the evaporator full. That lowers the temperature. Whenever I have to open the door to put in wood, the cold air going in lowers the temperature, just a few degrees. So what we do, and a lot of producers do, is get it up to what they call almost syrup, about 214 degrees. Now I've got another cooker over there. That's called the finishing pan. That's a gas fire, and nothing changes that temperature. So we'll get it up to almost syrup, take it over there and finish it. Now, when I got the temperature to where I wanted, before I could take any off, I would have to put this big filter over the end of that pipe. Because as you cook that sap, it develops carbon and sugar sand. See, the screen's pretty clean. But if I scoop it through here a few times, you can see all the black specks of carbon and sugar sand. So that's why you gotta have that filter on there. We filter it before we pour it into the tank. We filter it here when we take it out. And then there's one more filter. So when the temperature's right and I got the filter on, I would just open this handle and I'd take out a quart or so. Then I close it. Now this will drop down and bring in more sap. Now I'll bring it over here. Once it gets here, we normally only cook it about 10 or 15 minutes because most of the water's gone already. And I'll watch it real close. When it starts to get all foamy on top, I know it's maple syrup, but I gotta test it. And all we do to test it is measure the sugar content of the syrup. Remember, the sap was only 3% sugar, but the syrup is gonna be 66%. We use a hydrometer. We put the syrup in the can, put the hydrometer in, and if it will come up and float on that red line, that tells us we've reached 66% sugar. We don't want to cook it any longer. The next step after that will be poured through one more filter into a bottle, put the lid on tight, and that'll be our maple syrup. Now, if we were really making it out here, I could make a bottle every 20 minutes with this machine. This will boil 20 gallons of sap an hour, so in 2 hours you could make a gallon of syrup. This is what I'd be trying to make, you guys. This is grade A, amber-colored maple syrup. If you let it get too hot or cook it too long, it gets real dark. Then it's grade B and C, and the pancake people don't want that. They want grade A. Now the maple candy people would buy it, but they don't pay as much. So everybody's trying to get that grade A. Now it's possible to make something else. If this gallon milk jug was full of pure maple syrup and you boiled every bit of water away, you could get about 7 pounds of maple sugar. And that's good too for cooking and whatever else you want to use it for. Now, when you bottle that syrup, if it's hot, you can keep the syrup